Thanks, Desian. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Desian, and welcome everybody to this Raising the Bar series. And let's just get these screens working here. This is building a lead generation system customized to you. And of course, you're going to get 2 hours of CE credit. That little record note is up on my screen. I can't get rid of it. Let me see if I can. Sometimes it goes and sometimes it doesn't. Let's see if I can get rid of that before we get going. You can't see it, but I can see it. Let's see if we can do that. There we go. All right. Okay, so just to remind you those rules from the division. Have your full name displayed on the screen. Have your video turned on, of course. Be in attendance for the whole of the class. See and engage, and we'll try and engage with each other as we go through this class. And of course, I'll give you 3 keywords. During the next couple of hours, when this little icon pops up, the keyword will flash on the screen. If for some reason you miss a keyword, please don't ask people to share it in the chat. Please talk to Leslie privately through chat and she'll help you. I will not respond to chat through this course, but Leslie Ann will. I just invite you to literally unmute and chime in with your thoughts and comments and stories and questions and see what we can learn today from each other as we go through this little course. So Raising the Bar series created by Jennifer Yeo, who's our principal broker at Presidio. She said this: each day is a new opportunity for us to build our real estate business. Use this class to increase your potential as a realtor and become better able to serve your clients. I quite like this little quote from Norman Vincent Peale, who's an American author and minister. He said, all successful people have a goal. No one can get anywhere unless he knows where he wants to go and what he wants to be or do. And that includes the ladies as well. So I thought it was a good little quote to start off today. We shall kind of overview the following, if we can get through it. We'll first of all look at 4 degrees of action. You've probably seen those before, but a good reminder. And then we'll review some strategies in lead generation. We'll look at a few sales statistics and habits that have been recorded over the last few years, which might be helpful in our sales. And then we'll look at various things we can do. And we'll particularly focus on the for sale by owners, because we can learn a lot when we're working with a for sale by owner. We'll look at the expired listings on the MLS, and we'll talk a little bit about where buyers found their home, playing the numbers game. And then we'll look at a number of different sources that we can use to generate new leads in our database, and finish up with a custom lead generation system for you. That's what we'll try and overcome in the next couple of hours. Certainly in real estate, we choose our own track and we choose our own pace. We're not necessarily racing against anybody else. We're just trying to be better at our own game. So you choose your track and you choose your pace and the speed you want to go in this business. And we'll look at that a little later on. So 4 degrees of action. We'll start off with this visual here. Have we got any archers on board today? Anybody do any archery? Anybody do any archery? No? Okay. Well, this lady here, she's got all the kit, as you can see, and it looks like she's pretty focused. She's got that arrow that's ready to go. But if she doesn't let go of that arrow, nothing is going to happen. She's not going to reach her target, irrespective of how well prepared she is. And it does take an awful lot of strength, physical and mental strength, to be able to hit that target. A couple of things, or 3 things here to think about. Obviously, she's got to have a lot of physical strength. Coordination, balance has got to be really good. And she's got to be very focused and very patient. There's some of the skills that we need when we're working with building new contacts into our lead generation database. So we'll first of all review these 4 degrees of action. The first one, of course, is you have a sincere desire to move forward, but you stop there, usually because of fear, and end up doing nothing. If she doesn't let go of that arrow, nothing is going to happen. The second degree of action is you start with your plan, but quickly become discouraged, usually because of rejection, and you end up retreating. Third, you take moderate levels of action, but nothing spectacular, and you do get results, but they may only be average results. You may not reach your personal potential. And of course, the fourth is taking massive action. And then obviously you receive those great rewards and you do reach your potential. So let's have a look at those 4 different areas of degrees. And please just chime in if you've got any questions or thoughts or comments as we go through this, or any stories. So number 1, of course, doing nothing actually means what it sounds like. You're basically there doing nothing. And we're not going to get very far. And there are some people that join this industry. They go through their all their training and they spend their money. They pass their tests and they're all ready to go. But when it actually comes to moving forward, they end up doing nothing. I put a note here: no longer taking actions to move yourself forward in order to learn, achieve, or control in some area. People who do nothing in their career, relationships, or whatever they want have probably given up on their dreams and are willing to accept pretty much whatever comes their way. People in this group will find themselves spending time and energy justifying the situations, which often requires as much effort as doing one of the other 3 degrees of action. And probably most of us have been in this place sometime in our lives, or even sometime in this industry. Sometimes we end up in a chapter where we are doing very little. That brings up our first keyword. And of course, each one of us have a choice. And that will be our first keyword on this class today: choice, CHOICE. Just to remind you to have your screen turned on, your video on, be engaged all the time. Obviously no driving. And this will be the first keyword I'm sharing with you today: CHOICE, which is the word choice. You should jot that down. At the end of this class, Leslie Ann will share with you a link so you can fill in that form.
Can I just say, we have someone on the class named Jessica, just in case she missed my note in the chat. Jessica, I need to be able to see you virtually live. I just see your name. You may not want.
Yeah, I just unmuted for that. I've got an old laptop which doesn't allow me to have video, but I can try to get you on the phone.
Yes, why don't you do that?
Let me try to shift over to the phone. I'm engaged. I don't, my camera's dead. It doesn't work anymore, unfortunately.
Okay, and sometimes we have people that are on their computer to hear and their phone to see, or vice versa. I just need to be able to see you. So just keep that open and then try it on your phone as well.
Okay, that's what I'll do. I just got to go back and find the meeting ID.
Well, if you just go to raising the bar, so Presidio raisingthebar.com, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Got it.
Okay.
I'll get on there right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Leslie Ann, for highlighting that. So the second degree of action is of course, retreat. Retreaters are those who take certain actions to avoid negative experiences. And if you've got involved in this business thinking you're not going to have a negative experience, you probably be surprised, because we do have negative experiences in any type of sales industry, and certainly in real estate. These folk imagine that they can be successful without doing the hard work of prospecting, and fairly quickly get disappointed when they don't get the results quick enough. The retreater fears the journey of real success. Off he goes, and there we have it. Retreaters came to be doing so in order to avoid more rejection and or failures. It's almost never the actual rejection or failure that has impacted them. More often than not, it's their impression and evaluation of what failing and rejection means that is causing them to retreat. Like doing nothing, retreaters is an action that requires effort and hard work. Watch any healthy child, you'll see that it's not normal behavior to retreat. I'm sure that some of you have got youngsters here, or as we have, we've got grandchildren, and I do notice that they don't give up. They just keep asking and asking quite nicely until they usually get a yes answer. I had a situation a few weeks ago. I took out my youngest grandson to Home Depot, and I know he often goes there because his father is in business in construction, so he's always going to Home Depot. And I needed to pop in there to pick up some paint. And on the way out, he said to me, he says, we need to get a sucker. I said, we do? Yeah, he says, they're just over there. So I'm thinking that every time he goes to Home Depot, on the way out, they get one of these suckers. In England, we call them a lollipop. So, okay, let's get the sucker. I said, you sure? He said, oh, yeah. So we do sucker. Anyway, so I get this sucker. It's huge. And he can't get the wrapper off quick enough. I find out later from his mother, who's our daughter, that they never buy him a sucker, but he always asks for one. And so he finally got his sucker. I think I was probably the sucker there. But if we notice with youngsters, they do not give up. And that's how we have to be in this business. We have to just be patiently moving along and sharing our story and offering our services and not retreat. So don't give up. Moderate action, of course, is what most of us are probably doing most of the time. People who take normal levels of action are probably the most prevalent in our society. We're quite happy with what we've got. This group that appears on the surface to be taking necessary amounts of action and to be normal in their execution of the work, this level of action creates an action that is simply considered acceptable. Of course, people in this group spend their lives taking enough action to appear average and create normal lives, marriages, careers. However, they may be or do not reach the true success that they really desire or they could reach. This level of action is accepted by the masses, and therefore these people do not take the necessary action to receive or achieve the real high success that they could achieve in their lives. And probably we have been there or are there. And of course, we've got those that are in what we call the massive action. So massive action is doing something all of the time until you are successful in reaching your desired rewards. I just talked to you about children. They have massive action. They have their goal and they keep asking until hopefully they get a yes. But they're not discouraged the next day. If all they had was no's on that first day, they'll ask again. When you start operating at the 40-degree action, your mindset will shift and so will your results. If you continue with a commitment to massive action, one day it will no longer be an unusual activity, but an easy habit for you. Signals that you are taking massive action are having people comment upon and admire your level of activity and success. And if you don't create new problems, then maybe you're not taking enough action. Think about that. Here's some other thoughts on massive action that might be helpful. Often we can get criticized or labeled if we are starting to, leave the pack and get involved in massive action. Don't be discouraged about that. That's just one of the consequences of doing something that's outside of the box. The second you start hitting big, you immediately have or be judged by others that may be happy to be mediocre. People who operate at the other three levels of action will be threatened sometimes by your activity level, and often make it seem somehow wrong in order to make themselves right and acceptable. And finally, people working at level 4 are always looking forward to what they can do to increase their efforts, rather than looking back at what they've done. They don't look in the rear mirror, they're only looking forward. So there's some thoughts on those 4 degrees of action. Anybody got any comments or thoughts or observations or anything they'd like to add to or share on? Have we got some folk here that do massive action? Have we got some massive action players? Have we got some realtors here who would like to be in the massive action department?
For sure.
Who said for sure?
I did, Jess Walker.
Yeah, Jessica. I
Slowly
can't
working
see you.
towards that.
You're working. You're
Wait, I
working
thought
on massive action. You got
I'm
it.
on here.
There she is.
Wait, can you see me now?
Yeah, I
There we
can see
are.
you, Jessica. That's
Oh,
perfect.
good.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
oldest daughter's name's Jessica, and she's a massive action girl. So yeah, well done on that. So tell me, Jessica, how important is it?
Massive action. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, fire away. How important is it that we have massive action in order to be successful as a realtor?
Well, I'm finding that it's very important. This is just my second year, and I've sort of been struggling with the selling of myself aspect of this whole thing. So I've been lucky enough to rely mostly on referrals up to this point. but I really want to up the ante, and I'd love to be doing more transactions. So I know that I'm hoping you're going to help me figure out some ways to do that by growing the lead generation.
Yeah, we'll definitely share some ideas here that might be helpful for you. And did someone else have a comment as well? I think someone else chimed in as well. I didn't quite see that person. No doubt, I don't want to miss anybody. Perfect. All right, so let's see what we can learn. Well, let's look at the bees. We're all familiar with the working bee there. Anybody got any idea how many bees it takes to create a jar of honey? I was quite surprised at some of these statistics. 2 million flowers. That's 2 million flowers. Think about that. 2 million flowers must be visited to create 1 pound of honey. Wow. That's massive action. A hive of bees must fly 55,000 miles to produce a pound of honey. Wow. That's a lot of miles. Well, there we go. I just came out of that. Let me just pop back in there. Sometimes the internet just catches me out here. So, you know, this little worker bee, busy all the time. And if you look at bees, they literally do not stop. I'm sure they're asleep some of the time, but they are busy all the time. 22,700 trips are required to fill a jar of honey. So what can we learn from the busy bee when we're trying to create massive action for our own business? Who'd like to chime in on that one for me? How about Connie and Mark? I know you don't mind me picking on you. How are you doing today?
Well, looking at the bee, they never stop. They always are doing something.
Yeah.
And so it's, I mean, obviously they probably have to sleep, which we all do, but during your waking hours, I guess you should always be busy. I mean, of course, you need to take time out for other things too, but don't take, I guess, an excessive amount of time out. Be busy like a bee.
Yeah, and even if we're not physically doing so, we could be thinking about it and creating our mind, you know, what our next move is. But yeah, just think about that when we in real estate, are we as busy as the bee? Because these bees do not stop, and they have to cover a lot of ground in order to get that pound of honey, that jar of honey that we love to spread on our toast or whatever. So let's have a think about that. Let's look very briefly at some lead generation strategies. I'm going to load these in here. I mean, there's lots of things that can be done when we're trying to find customers. Obviously, we're trying to turn those customers into clients. It's not necessarily an easy process unless we are doing it all the time. Then it becomes easier. If we only do it, you know, once a month or once here and there, it might not be that easy. But if we're doing it all the time, it becomes part of our culture, then it can become a lot easier. Here are some thoughts that we might just consider as we go through this class today. Regular follow-ups for positive feedback is really important. When you do get a client, or when you do get a contact, you know, attach them to your database. You know, make sure you jot down their contact information, you don't lose them. Obviously, we've got to be in contact with people, whether we're talking to them, you know, in person, or working with phone calls, or if we're, you know, working through some sort of social media platform or FaceTime. We have got to be in contact, in conversation with people in order to, you know, find new contacts. Neighborhood farming, of course, great to let your neighborhood know who you are. And if you can have a local presence in the community, maybe you've got some skills or talents or gifts in other areas that can allow you connecting into community activities, that can be very helpful. There are a lot of people that are very good at engaging with others through social media, particularly in this day and age. And we have lots of different social media platforms that we can look at. So think about that. We do have another class that talks a bit more detail about the social media engagement. But that's a huge market, huge market. There are some realtors that get involved in a bit of video marketing, others that will get involved in building their own website, and then, you know, search engine optimization for that website, try and bring people in that way. Of course, hosting Open houses can be a great way of finding new people and also practicing our communication skills with those who come to visit the open house. Agent to agent referrals, you know, certainly if we get in a contact that lives out of state, you know, or a long way from wherever we are working, then we can connect in with another agent and get a referral fee there. We'll talk a little bit about expired listings, and we'll start off with the FSBO listings. And we'll go through some more of these. I'm just giving you a fairly broad idea of how big this base is. There's lots of things we can do, and it really depends on our own character and what kind of style we have and talents we have in communications as to which types of finding techniques we use to find contacts and find new clients. Just unmute if you've got anything to say, by the way. So let's first look at this visual here. We'll talk about the habits of salespeople. Here's a climber. We've got any climbers with us today? Anybody do any climbing? No climbers. Okay. So let's have a look at this guy. There's quite a technique to climb up a rock face. And believe it or not, there are like 6 different hand grips. And for those of you who have no idea, these are the 6 different hand grips. These are just the basic hand grips that a climber has to be familiar with. You know, they're very, very detailed in how they get themselves from the base of the mountain to the top. And they've got to have immense strength in their legs and in their arms and torso. So, but they need to know the skills of how to get to the top. And with all successful people, they do certain things that are similar to each other. So here's a question. When do you think they practice? We've got a climber here, but we've got lots of different successful people in different types of industries. People that are successful, when do you think they practice? Let's pick on someone. Shireen, I can see you there. How are you today? How about you unmuting, saying hello to everybody? And see if I can get you to.
There I go. Okay, sorry. It keeps going to different parts of my screen. Well, I would say they practice so that they can be better at what they're doing and so that they can maybe climb bigger mountains. I don't know. I wouldn't like to climb a mountain. I would like to climb like a mile up the mountain, but not that way.
Yeah, stay with me, Shireen, as we go through some of the other questions. How do they practice?
Hopefully with help. Hopefully on smaller, easier climbs and with more than just themselves.
Usually they're practicing on a climb, aren't they? They're not thinking about it at home. They're actually doing it, and they're probably making mistakes as they go along. Here's another one that we'll list. It's not come in yet. When do they practice? When do you think they practice?
Probably as often as they can.
Yes, absolutely.
If they like to climb.
Yeah, probably all the time. Whoops, that went a bit too quick, that did. Yeah, they're probably practicing all the time because they have a vested interest in trying to get proficient enough to climb that next bigger mountain. So when we look at those little questions there, we probably need to ask ourselves the same questions in our real estate activities. You know, why are we practicing? We're hopefully practicing with people all the time so we become better at communicating to them. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do it on the job. We are not going to just be thinking about it. We've got to actually do it with live people. Where do we do it? We're going to do it wherever we are. You know, whether we're in a family setting or whether we're out shopping or whether we are, in a social function. And when we do it, we're going to try to do it all the time. We've got to get to that stage. Otherwise, we won't become as successful as we really want to become. Would you agree with that? Good. Yep. Let's look at some figures here that might be very interesting for us to consider. So people know people. Anybody got an idea of how many people most people know? Anybody got Any idea on this?
500.
Pretty close, yes, pretty close. So let's look at that figure in a moment. The people we know are obviously the people we're currently in contact with, or we may be other people that we've lost contact with, or we very rarely contact them, but they're still people that we know that we can reach out to. And if you go to Alexa and you ask them how many people the average American knows, it'll come up with 600 persons. That's quite amazing when you think about that. Each one of us, the average is that we'll probably know about 600 people. So 500 is a good guess. I'll probably work with 500 in a moment. People we don't know, they're going to come from maybe referrals from people that we know, or we're probably going to find those people through other contacting methods, through advertising and marketing. And ultimately, they're going to be new contacts that are going to come into our SOI or sphere of influence. So let's develop those rings a little bit further. As we've got our SOI, and let's start off, let's work with the 500. Most people are going to know about 500 people. And I've got Liberty on here, and Liberty is in our own office in Presidio. Liberty, how would you like to unchime and tell us how you're getting on with those 500 names you're working on?
Well, I'm past 400 now, and it's going slower because I've put so many names on there. But as I talked to one person, I remember someone, like a mutual acquaintance that we both had. And so I add that person, and it's slowly growing to get to that 500.
Perfect. Yeah. And when we first spoke, I think you had under 200. So, and you thought that was a lot of names, but as you work that list, all of a sudden you start to find new names that come from other names that you add to your list. So very, very good. If you can try and get to the stage when you found those 500 people, you can talk to 100 of them in person, that will build your business base. There's no doubt about that. And then obviously you're going to try and reconnect with those that you may have lost contact with. Follow-up is the key. Obviously, when we're working with contacts to start off with, we're trying to build our personal relationship with them, obviously find out how they are, what they're doing, and hopefully they're going to be interested in what we're doing, and that's when we can mention to them what the industry that we're involved in and how we can, or maybe help them. Now, when we look at that 500, and I'll just show you just share figures here, and obviously these figures don't always work this way, they don't, but it's a good idea to open up our minds. Every person we know also would probably know 500 people, which is really 250,000 people when you think about that. That could be 250,000 people in our sphere of influence, or that we could access through our sphere of influence. That's a lot of people. If you look at the average house sale in Utah for last year, which was just under $460,000, and let's say, for instance, we only got 10 referrals just from the people that we know, look how those figures ramp up on a 3% commission. Sometimes it's good to open up numbers to see what our potential is, and then we've got something to drive for. You know, just 10 referrals at 3% commission, average sale of 13, just over $13,750 commission there, multiplied up $137,000 would be our, and that's just taking 10 referrals from people we know. So just think about the numbers, because that can energize you into becoming more excited when you wake up in the morning and think, yes, I've got my 500 list here. I'm going to now work this list to get some business. And that's the way it works. Anybody got any comments or thoughts or observations on the slides we've just looked at? You're not all going to sleep on me, have you? Let's bring in Alison. Alison, are you still with us? I saw you enter. Why don't you unmute and say hello to everybody?
I'm here.
How long have you been a realtor for?
Like a month or less.
Brilliant. I picked the right person. I picked the right person. You've been well, we all clap because we know what it's like to be a month in this industry, and we also know the pain and the hours that you've gone through to get your license and pass those tests. So well done on that. Well done.
Thank you.
So you're just starting. You're starting right at the beginning on this. How are you getting on with your just building up your SOI, just your names? How are you getting on with that?
You know, I haven't totally started that yet. I'm just still, you know, in your first with the bow and arrow and the girl. Like I'm kind of in that area where I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I'm still just, I'm thinking, and I do have a big network right now. I am a hairstylist, so I have a lot of clients. So I tell people, but I haven't like, yeah, I'm just still not sure what to do. So
good. Well, that's great. And you've already got that other line of business where you are seeing people numerous times a week who are coming down their hair done. You've got your business cards, and the easiest way there is to say, hey, why don't you take a couple of these, and if you know anybody that's thinking of buying or selling real estate, you know, I'd love to have the opportunity to visit with them. So Liberty's about the same as you. She's been, you know, about a month or so in this business, so she knows exactly how you feel. And we do as well. When Leslie Ann and I came over from England, whatever it was, 12 or 13 years ago, we literally didn't know people over here because we moved country. And so we had to work very, very hard at building those new contacts. And these were completely new contacts, people in the neighborhood. We had to get to know, you know, people at different, you know, social functions or whatever. And sooner or later, the business comes to you. I think our first deal was someone who knew someone, you know, and then we were able to get involved and meet with that person. I think it was the brother of someone that we were that we knew that eventually got us our first transaction. So it does happen, but we do have to make those contacts. Right. And you've got to start first by just writing down. I say, get to 500 people, because that'll open up your mind and it will give you an opportunity to have a list to work with. You're probably never going to call all 500 people, but if you could end up calling, you know, in a period of time, 100 of them, definitely that's going to bring you business. It will definitely bring you business. And look at how the numbers pan out, because these numbers, it is a numbers game, and they do work. So thanks for sharing that, Alison. And we are all with you. We all know what it's like to be on that first run, and it is possible. It is possible to make this work. So here are some thoughts you might consider useful when you're thinking about working with contacts. You make the initial contact, which is great. But in general sales, and these are sales figures for the whole of the US across all different industries of sales, believe it or not, over half of them, 53%, never follow up. So they make the one call and then they're done. And so we've got to be careful we don't fall into that group. If we make a call, we've got to figure out we're going to follow up on it. Some people will say we'll follow up next month, or maybe others will be 6 months, or maybe another group might be a year, or even a couple of years. We need to know when we're going to follow up on those people. 53% of sales folk do not follow up on that first call. Look at this little bar here. 25% will make the second call, but then they'll stop. All right. And then we've got another 12% that will make 3 contacts and stop. That little section at the top there, only 10% of salespeople are making 3 contacts or more. And that's from the 2020 National Sales Report. So just swallow that information for a moment. We've obviously got to be in that 10% area in order to make this thing work. We can't be in the other areas, otherwise it's just chance and luck if we're actually going to get any business from it. So we need to be in that top 10%. We need to be making at least 3 contacts plus on the people that we are working with. So let's look at some other statistics that might help us on this. So sales made on the first contact, 2%. So that's what our that's probably what our result's going to be. That's what it's based on, all sales platforms.
Stephen,
yes, thank you.
I have a question. So with the making a second or third contact, is that like cold calls or friends, or like, is it actually talking about real estate, or like just checking
So,
with them? Like,
so yes. So these sales figures are from all salespeople in the US on all industries, but it is working with a brand new contact. So, you know, in some cases, some industries, you know, or they do it like insurance industries, many of them would do a phone call, and that will be counted as the first contact. But it's got to be a speaking contact. It can't just be an email. These are actually speaking contacts.
okay.
Does that make sense? So that's what we look at. But it is across all sales platforms. It's not just real estate. But generally speaking, it's probably going to be very close to how we are in real estate. Good question. Thanks for that, Liberty. So sales made on second contact, 3%. Sales made on third contact, 5%. Sales made on fourth contact, 10%. And you see that 80% of the sales are made on those that contact between 5 and 12 times. So just think about that when you're working with your list. You know, if we've not been able to connect with that person or those people, you know, between 5 and 12 times, we're going to reduce the possibility of us getting some business from them. 80% of sales come from those that have been contacted between 5 and 12%. I'll pause there for a moment. Any questions or comments on that? The reason I share these figures with you. Oh, yeah, fire away. Who was that?
Oh, it was Jessica again. I just said that's a lot of contact.
Oh, it is. It is. It's a lot
Yeah.
of contact. So I don't want you to be discouraged. Sometimes we get discouraged because we've just done a few contacts, but we've got to think in our mind, I've got to do a lot of contacts on this to actually get this business off the ground. And it does take a lot of fuel to get the business going. If you think about an aeroplane, you know, the amount of fuel it takes to get that machine off the ground and in the air is huge. But once it's in the air, it glides. It doesn't need anywhere near the amount of fuel it takes to actually get it off the ground. Same with a rocket. The amount of fuel that it takes to get a rocket up, you know, into space it's just beyond your imagination. But once it's up there, you know, it needs very little. And so it is with our business. We found in our business, you know, the first, well, we were just going at it really hard. The amount of contacts we were making and sales calls and communicating with people was huge. And it actually, we didn't get paid until after 5 months. I think it took us 5 months to get our first paycheck in. But because of the amount of work we'd done with prospecting, by the end of that year, I think we pulled in something like 33 different transactions. And we were Rookie of the Year for the whole of the Salt Lake Wasatch Front in 2012. So it can be done, but you have got to do that massive action to start off with. It's just a lot of energy to get this business off the ground. All right, let's look at some other thoughts now. I'm going to use the for sale by owner, the FSBOs, because when we look at these points, they're really good when we're working with all types of people. But when we're working with a for sale by owner, all of the information that we need to know about that's helpful to the for sale by owner is useful with anybody that we're working with. So I'm going to go through these, and that'll be helpful to you. The statistics on for sale by owner also now from the National Association of Realtors in 2020. I tried to find an up-to-date one, but they've not got an updated one yet. This is the last one they've got. Typical for sale by owner home sold for 2017, 900 compared to 295 for those that have been assisted by an agent. So think about that. Think about the difference there. You know, there's whatever it is, 60 odd grand there. They easily pay our commission and still come out with more money. So, you know, the stats show that for sale by owners do not net as much in their pocket as they would do if they engaged an agent. So let's look at some of the thoughts now. I'm going to go through 25 most common challenges for an unrepresented seller. And these points are good for us to know about whoever we're working with, because they can be easy to help answer questions. So first of all, pricing. These are some thoughts they may have on pricing. How should I determine the price of my property? They obviously don't have the skills or the tools that we have. They can't come up with an estimated price, a CMA, based on current properties that are selling in the area. A question may be how much they're going to net. And I just mentioned if they engage a realtor, they are going to net more. We can tell them about that and how that's going to work. And of course, we can show them what our value is when we are able to help them understand, the price we're selling this house for. Unfortunately, people do expect houses to be less expensive if they're being sold by the owner. I suppose it's a bit like if you went to a yard sale and there may be some very good items there, but you're not expected to pay, I guess the high street or the retail price, even if the items are not being used. You always want them cheaper. Any thoughts on pricing? Here are some thoughts they may have or questions on marketing. How will buyers find me and how will I find them? What are the most effective ways to market my property and what will that cost? And how should I stage my property? How do I prepare it for showing? Some good questions that the for sale by owner will most likely need answers for. Let's go to the next group. Lender. How do I know if a buyer is financially qualified and how long does it take for the loan to be approved? They're questions we can answer. Showings. What security and safety issues could they face or could I face? What should I say or not say? Because obviously they'll be showing the home. What questions will buyers ask me and how should I answer? What questions should I ask potential buyers? And how can I be available for buyers who want to see my home immediately? There's some other thoughts that we might consider answers to when we're working with people, particularly for sale by owners. Any questions or thoughts on that slide? Okay, here are some other thoughts you may consider. Contracts. What do I need to know about the required paperwork and disclosures? Often the sale by owner doesn't know much about the paperwork or disclosures. Very important. What are my legal responsibilities, especially about disclosures? What happens during negotiations? And of course, that's one of our greatest advantages, is to be able to negotiate for them, to get them top dollar. What do I legally do with the earnest money? Where is that going to go? What do I do if I get multiple offers? How do they decide on choosing? It's not just the price. Of course, it's more than just the price. Closing. What must I do between contract and closing? What happens with inspections? How can appraisals and inspections stop a sale? And when does a transaction fail? And then what happens? So there are some thoughts that we know the answers to, but most of our for sale by owners do not know. Any questions or thoughts or comments on that slide?
This is Jess Walker. It's cool that we're looking at this because I literally just got off the phone with the for sale by owner. One of my buyers is interested in purchasing his property, and he is really pretty clueless. He does, I mean, in a nice way. He was a really nice guy. I gave him some, a little bit of advice here and there, and had to explain sort of what a backup offer meant and things like that. So this is really great, is what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and tell me, Jessica, this for sale by owner. Do you know if you are the only offer that he's receiving?
No, he said about 100 agents called him to try to get the listing.
Right. Okay.
And he said he's got it under contract right now, but it sounds like he's got it under contract with a big sort of investor type. And he just told me on the phone he is bummed that he jumped quickly to sign the contract with them, because he would much rather sell to a starting family or a first-time buyer, which is exactly what my people are. So yeah, I just think it's pretty interesting to see This is not the first for sale by owner that my current buyers have asked me to approach, and I've found a lot of all this that you're talking about is pertinent.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and we'll talk in a moment a little bit how to get into the mind of the sell by owner, because they do have some fixed approaches to this business.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah, very good. Thanks for sharing that, Jessica. Finally, the last little group of thoughts on this, just general other challenges that may come up. Obviously, how often and why do unrepresented buyers give up and hire a realtor? And they are a proportion of those that do. I mean, obviously at the moment we're in a seller's market, so it's an advantage for them, and most likely they're going to sell their house. They may not sell it for the highest price, but they most likely are going to sell it because we have a shortage of inventory. But those of us who have been in the business for a number of years will notice when it's a buyer's market, often these unrepresented sellers will just give up and think, oh, I better get a realtor in to get this job done. Should I pay a realtor who brings a buyer? And if so, what should I pay him? How and why? It's another little question there. How can a realtor negotiate better than I? Of course. And the last one there is, should I hire an attorney to review and protect my legal position? Because obviously the contracts are coming in and they often do not understand them. Let's just pause on that one question, 24 there. How can a realtor negotiate better than I? Who'd like to answer that one for me? If you've got a for sale by owners asking you that question, how would you answer that question? All right, I have to pick on someone. You guys are asleep today. Let's have Heather. Heather, are you able to unmute and say hello to everybody?
I can answer part of that if you want.
Oh, okay. Who is that who's speaking?
It takes us a while to figure out how to unmute. Well, I think because we know the market, we know what, and I don't care if their neighbor said, I sold for 600,000. A lot of neighbors say that, and maybe they didn't, but we know what they honestly sold for,
Right.
So I think if we roll our numbers and pull our numbers and do our due diligence, we know what their house is worth, where they might have just heard rumors or they might just have a guess, but we honestly know.
Yeah, and stay with me, Shireen, because one of the other talents that we have that he doesn't have is we also have the opportunity to build up a really good relationship with that other agent, don't we?
Right.
And, the other agents in the same industries, we all talk the same language. We all know what we're trying to do. And, I'm a big believer that if two agents get on well, then every transaction can be workable. The key thing is the two agents.
A win-win situation and not a dig situation, I guess is a good word for it.
Right.
I won or something. It helps so much if your other agent on the other end is doing their job, you're doing your job, and you both are just working towards the final goal of everybody being happy and the house selling and the house being bought and everybody walking away a winner. So
yeah, and
that's what I think.
Yeah, perfect. For those that have been in the industry for many years, we know that most transactions have some, bumps and twists and turns that we can't even consider or predict from the outset. And if you've got a good relationship with that agent,
there's going to be a hiccup. Don't panic. There's going to be a hiccup, but that's what I'm there for, is to take care of the hiccups.
Yeah, perfect. Wonderful. I should just ask Heather, anything to add to that, Heather? Or any thoughts you'd like to share? Because I did ask you earlier.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties.
That's fine. How long have you been a realtor?
Can you hear me? I didn't know if I was unmuted. Okay,
yes,
I lost my screen somehow and I can't see you, but
oh, I can definitely hear you. How long have you been a realtor for?
It's been about 3 years.
Oh, well done for getting through the 2-year the 2-year course.
Yeah.
A lot of realtors don't renew, do they? So well done on that.
Thank you.
Any thoughts to add on the topic we've just been talking about?
I think just a lot of that is the market and just understanding exactly what's going on. And I know that was said, but also just having the experience that we've had in doing multiple transactions and having you know, dealing with those hiccups that will come along, and having that experience of already dealing with that and going through that. So.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing. All right, so just think about some of those thoughts. Let's tackle these questions, because these are going to come up anyway. Why do sellers choose to be unrepresented? We're probably all going to first of all say that they want to save the commission. I'm sure that's the number one area that pops up in their mind. Here are some other thoughts though as well that may be issues. They may want more control over the negotiations. They may think that realtors get paid too much for doing too little. You've probably heard of that one before. Often they don't know how much we do. They may feel that they know more about the real estate platform to sell their home than we do. Sometimes they think that they might know more about the house value. They think they know what it's worth, what it's worth and what the value is than us. And that's because they're emotionally involved, whereas we look at the markets. They do not want to know about or follow ethics in real estate transactions. That can be another area of concern. They do not want to share personal finance information with a realtor. So there's some of the reasons why maybe a unrepresented buyer will choose to be unrepresented and not use a realtor. And if we've got those thoughts in our minds, then at least we know how to answer them when we do talk a little to them and find out what are the reasons. Any thoughts or comments on that slide? Or any add-tos that I may have missed? Okay, good. Well, that brings us up to our second keyword. We must be getting to about halfway through this class today. Let's see what we're looking at there. And that will just pop off the screen there. And it's going to be commission. And we all like that word, don't we? So there we have it. COMMISSION. If for some reason you missed the first keyword, then talk privately to Leslie Ann. We cannot mention it again. I can't share it on chat. But talk to Leslie Ann. If you've qualified in the other areas, she'll be able to share that with you. But number two, commission, that is the keyword. Number two is commission. The first one actually did begin with the letter C, I can tell you that. All right, let's look at some statistics here. We are working on the FSBOs at the moment because some of these are good to look at. 92% of home sales in 2020 were assisted by an agent. So there's still a big market there. 8% is still a large market of FSBOs that we can tap into if we are in an area where we can see people trying to sell their home on their own. Here's another interesting stat. These are methods used to market the home. Just under 50% there, so 46% do either nothing or very little. 25% put a yard sign out there, 11% have an open house, and other is 18. It did not say what the other was. So that gives you an idea of, you know, what we can do on top of what usual for sale by owners are not doing. And here's another interesting slide for stats. So the NAR survey shows that agents sell homes for a minimum of 13% more than FSBOs, 13%. So you can quote that from that 2020 NAR report. And if you look at some of the challenges they do have a challenge with paperwork, just about a quarter of them on paperwork, a quarter of them have a challenge fixing the home, repairing the home. Another quarter challenge there with the pricing, and then that other section is those needing to sell within a time frame, and the other, which I would think is to do with personal circumstances. Then we've got the mindset of a successful agent when prospecting a FSBO. I mentioned this earlier when Jessica was speaking. So just think about this. If you are going to approach someone who's looking at selling their home on their own, here are some thoughts that might be helpful. It's really good to get an appointment and to meet with them in person. That's a really good idea, rather than just work over the phone. Okay, if you can get in front of them, you have more presence and more I guess, power in that conversation. When you visit with them, it's probably a good idea to work in the third person. So, you know, you may not be necessarily, even though you would like to represent them, but you can talk to them about, you know, I'd like to walk you home. I may have some clients that might be interested in this home. And if you know anybody who might be looking for a realtor, I'd be very happy to visit with them. Try and work on strengthening your relationship. Try and work on a low-key approach, because they don't like to be pressurized, these people. Being customer service driven, not selling, they are more comfortable with. I mentioned that earlier. Face-to-face is definitely most preferable. Share what valuable resources you have and can offer. And be careful not to give too much information away without, you know, obviously having them sign a listing agreement with yourself. But think about what you can do. You may share information with a CMA. You may talk about price and advice, but just be careful that you don't give everything away, because sometimes these folk will just use it and still not use you. So try and have something that you can still bring them in on. Any thoughts on that slide? Okay.
Stephen, I actually have a quick question there.
Thank you.
This is Jess Walker again. So I said I was working with that for sale by owner. So I had what I thought was a really nice chat with him earlier. Clearly he's moving forward. He's already under contract, but he did comment. He was really complimentary. He's like, gosh, you're like one of 3 people that I've talked to who seems like, you know, your ethical fiduciary duties to your clients, you know, blah, 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 are good. So my question is, at this point, is it worth trying to at least establish a good relation with him? Because maybe he would refer me to a friend of his for a different sale or listing. So, I mean, he admitted to me he doesn't know he's just like kind of looked at what else he'd seen sell, and that's how he determined the price of the house. Would doing something like sharing the CMA with him in my position be to any advantage?
Probably so, because, you know, well, first of all, the contract that he's working on at the moment may not, you know, run the course. It may fall through.
Right.
And then if he's already got a good relationship with you, you're going to be the first go-to person. And of course, if it does go through and he doesn't necessarily have a good relationship with the realtor, then you are his contact. And if someone else says, hey, notice you sold your house, how much did you sell it for? We're thinking of selling ours. He could very well say, well, why don't you give this girl a call? I didn't use her, but she seemed like she's pretty competent, and, you know, you could end up getting a contact there. So I would certainly, you know,
that's what I thought.
you would add him to your SOI list, and, you know, he's a contact. You've at least established a relationship there that could be down the track valuable. And of course,
thank you.
You know, he has family members, doesn't he, as well?
I think so.
So
He
most likely,
seems young enough to still have some.
Yeah, very good. Here are some thoughts that may be useful as well. If you notice this stat, we're looking at 52% internet, and we've got 29% who use a realtor, and of course the realtor uses the internet, so then we're way up there at whatever it is, you know, 70-80%. Only 5% really from a friend or a relative or neighbor. House builder 6, yard sign, open houses at 6, and 2 is other. So that's an interesting stat as well that we can think about. So there are some thoughts on the FSBOs, which are also helpful when we're working on prospecting, because some of those questions will come up. Particularly for new agents, if you are looking at using the MLS to look for expired listings or withdrawn listings, just make sure they are expired before you call them. Sometimes they are not, so just make sure they have expired. Otherwise, you could be in an uncomfortable conversation there. I'll put some notes up here that might be helpful. Recently expired or withdrawn listings are often still motivated to sell They may have just pulled it off the market, they were not successful, or maybe their circumstances have changed slightly, or maybe they need to delay for some reason. And so that's still a good reason to call them. If you're looking at a group of people that may not have been contacted by many realtors coming out of the realtor school, then you could identify the older listings, and you'll probably find less agents are calling them. But do be aware, if you are looking at the fairly new expired listings, they've probably got a lot of agents calling. I'm not saying don't call them, but just be careful with your I guess your conversation, the way in which you operate the phone, upset them, if that makes sense. Does someone have a comment then? No? Okay. I thought I might have heard a comment. Has anybody here worked with expired listings or are thinking of working with expired listings from the MLS? Certainly you new agents, if you've not done it, I'd encourage you to give it a try. We certainly did when we started. I can't remember if we got any business from it or not, but it's a good practice talking to people and learning the jargon and figuring out, some of their responses, how you respond to those responses. So I would not say don't do it. If you're a brand new agent, I'd encourage you to give it a go, because you never know. You could very well capture someone who just likes your voice and is ready to go with the visit. Any comments on MLS expired listings or withdrawn listings? Okay. So it is a bit of a numbers game, this is. So there's the dice. It is a bit like rolling the dice in real estate, because you never actually know which people you contact are going to come up with the goods and want your services. And it's just a case of keep going through the numbers. So here are some thoughts that might be helpful when you're working on this. Top producers believe that all leads are potentially good from the outset. So if you're playing a game and you're playing with the dice and you need a 6, often when you're rolling the dice, you're thinking in your mind, I need a 6. And your roll, so you're positive from the outset, and that's how you need to be with this business. When you make that call, you've got to be thinking, this is going to be a good call, and I'm going to get a good response from the person I'm calling. And whether you do or not doesn't make any difference, really. You should still have the energy and the focus to make the call. And you'll notice when you're playing a game, if you don't get the dice to roll the way you're ready for the next time you roll, because then you think, yes, most likely this time I should get the numbers I'm after. Let's pull in McKay. McKay, I haven't said to you yet. Would I unmute and say hi to everybody? See if I can get McKay to talk to me. I think it is McKay.
It's McCoy, but
oh, McCoy. I couldn't quite see.
you're good.
McCoy, great. How are you, McCoy? You've been with me before, haven't you?
Yeah, I was on earlier last week. I've had my license maybe 2 or 3 weeks, so.
Perfect. You're the ideal person to talk to. Are you a game player, McCoy? Do you play games? What sort of games do you play? Board games or dice games or any games?
Yeah, I like gambling, board games.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so when you're gambling or when you're playing that game, in your mind, you already get your mindset on the numbers you're after, don't you?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that process.
I would just say I've done door-to-door sales the last 7 years, and that's more a numbers game than anything else. You're knocking 300 doors a day, getting 99% no's and a couple yeses. So, I'm used to that, getting 1 or 2 yeses to, you just got to keep going and being positive and know it's a mental game, I guess. So.
Yeah. And how do you keep yourself positive and mentally equipped to cope with the rejection when you're doing that many calls or door knocks?
If you just don't have a good mindset, you're not going to be making sales, and you just know, and 1 no is closer to a yes, I guess. And, just a numbers game, I guess.
It is a numbers game.
So
thanks for that, McCoy.
Yeah.
When I was in England, I did a lot of, I used to work for an insurance company at one time, and that literally was making hundreds of calls, literally a day. And I would call them up. I said, from England General, and people sort of slam that phone down or just say, I'm not interested. And I figured out that it really didn't matter what I said. It was literally a numbers game. So one morning I decided, I got about 300 calls to do. And I thought, what I'm going to say today is I'm just going to say something like, I'm just calling to make sure that you are not interested in insurance. And that was my opening line. So it was like a negative introduction. And believe it or not, I actually got a couple of sales out of that. Where they said, actually, I'm thinking about some insurance. So it proved to me that it may not necessarily be based on how good we are. I know that will make a difference, but ultimately, if you do the numbers, sooner or later, someone will say, yes, I am interested and let's talk. And maybe you found that, McCoy, when you've been working on the doors. It may not necessarily mean what you say. It's just arriving on the doorstep at the right time when the people are ready to receive. Is that what you found?
Yeah, and my wife, she just started doing, life insurance too. And yesterday she had someone kind of chew her out, I guess you could say. And then the next call, she made a sell. So had she, been, down after getting kind of yelled at, she would have, had low morals and maybe not have made a sell. But just knowing, hey, it's a new person, new contact. You got to be positive and fresh start. So, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Thanks for sharing. As McCoy said, every no you get, you're getting paid for because it's getting you close to the yes. And that's how positive we need to be. So it is a numbers game. Think about just being positive from the outset. You may have a day, you may have an hour, you may have a time where you've had a fairly bad response to something or some negativity, or you feel a bit down. You've got to just shake that off. It's in the past. Don't look in the wind mirror, look forward, and let's see what we can do. Here are some thoughts that may be helpful. The better quality lead, the better your conversation and the easier to do. A lead is good when we are focused on getting those sixes. If it's sixes, we need to be the better quality. We make the lead the better quality. Balance your money and your time for quality leads. There may be some here that are thinking about buying lists from companies. If you're doing that, be careful that it is a qualified list and you're getting qualified numbers. If you're buying advertising space somewhere, just make sure that you're not spending more than you can throw away, because that's how the marketing advertising works. You can't think, I'll spend this and I'll definitely get it back, because it doesn't always work. So just be aware of that. Top producers do massive lead generation through multiple sources. That's really important. I've found that not necessarily one thing works. It's doing lots of different things that tend to make it happen. You may have a niche market that you're working that's successful to you, but not necessarily successful to someone else. So it's balancing those multiple sources with the talents and gifts that we have, or skills that we have. Obviously, the more people you speak to, it is quite clear that more people are going to convert. And as McCoy said earlier, more no's you get, the quicker you get to the less. So there it is. Don't give up if you're getting too many rejections. It's usually not you. This is really important to understand. Just because you're getting no's or negatives, or you're moving very quickly, it's usually not because you're at fault. It's just you haven't got to the right people that are ready to say yes. So just be aware of that. Any other thoughts or comments on that screen? Anybody here that has had some, I don't know, rough days or rough weeks where they have felt a little bit dejected, and how they've pulled out of that they'd like to share with the other agents?
I have something.
Good. It's Heather. Hello, Heather. I can see
Hi.
you now. Fire away.
Good. I finally pulled it up on my phone. My computer kept kicking me out, but it just reminds me of the bees. Like, how many flowers did they need to land on to get that honey? The 1 gallon? The 1 gallon of honey, they had to land on so many flowers.
1 pound. Pound of honey. If it was a gallon of honey, that'd be nice. It's only a pound. Just 1 pound of honey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
2 million flowers have got left on.
Yeah, it just reminded me of that. I had one actually over Thanksgiving that was extremely frustrating. We had a listing down the street from me, and a neighbor decided their mom had just bought a house down here. I'm down in St. George, but she had just relocated and decided she didn't like the house she was in. So they went on a walk on Thanksgiving and just saw the house down the street. And they texted me and they said, "Hey, are you home? Can we get into this house?" And of course, I was up in Utah County for Thanksgiving. And so they ended up calling the listing agent, and he ended up doing the whole deal for them. And I was like, that's what I get for visiting family for Thanksgiving. It was frustrating because it would have been I would have been able to help her sell her home and buy that one. But I think you just remember, the next one will come along and it'll happen.
Yeah, let's just look at that that experience, because there may be another way in which you could have responded, and let's just see if we can have some agents help us on that. So you're out of town. They clearly call up and say, "Hey, we'd like to go and look at this home." I presume, obviously, you didn't have any agreement with them. They were just a contact that you called beforehand. And did you just ask them to call the listing agent direct, or did you arrange that?
No, I said, "I've got a friend that can run over and open the door for you." And they said, and then the next text I got was, "Well, we just went on a walk and we called the number that was on the sign."
Oh, okay. So they've already done that.
Yep. So I've kind of already done. I said, "Hey, I just want to make sure that you're represented. I'd love to still help if that's possible, even just answer questions." But he had kind of already gotten them squared away and a deal made just in that first meeting. So.
Okay. So here's another thought you may consider if that happened again. And it's always, I'm a big believer. We look at things, we do our best at the time with the information we have. And maybe next time it comes around, is there another way in which I could work this? So let's say, for instance, they called you up and they said, "Hey, yeah, we're looking at this other house." And you say, "Okay, let me quickly find out about it. I'll get back to you." So they don't even know you're out of town yet. And you call the listing agent, you say, "Hey, I've got a client who might be looking at your home. Is it available? Da, 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 da." And then you could have had the conversation with that listing agent, say, "I'm actually out of town at the moment. Would you be able to show the house for me?" So that may have put that listing agent into a place where they, "Oh, okay, you're already represented," and they may not have entered into the conversation to represent the client, even though the person wasn't your client. You were doing some quick information or quick calls early on to try and lock them into you. If you see what I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great response.
So that's what I would do. And we found sometimes when people call up and it's, we're driving around, we can see there's a builder that's got some really good houses in this area. We're thinking of popping in. We'll say, "Yeah, let me find out about it." Close the call the builder or call the agent quickly, so that at least that person knows that we are actually working with that contact.
Okay.
And that can be helpful. It may not go all the way, but at least it's another style of communication that could, in some cases, save the deal for you.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to look at it. Thank you.
Anybody else got any thoughts or comments on that great story or anything that we talked about so far? Okay, let's toodle on here and let's look at some of these. I'm going to roll these in little groups and we'll have a chat about them. Okay, so these are different types of lead generation sources. And this first group here is to do with people that we personally know. So obviously we want to tell family and friends what we're doing. For those of us that have been in business for a while, we hopefully got some past clients. Sometimes we may have some client parties, or we may get those clients together or invite them to something that's going on that can also remind them that we have helped them in real estate. We do need to remind people what we do, because people forget. And of course, we are interested in getting referrals from people we know. I've been with 3 different brokerages over the last 12 or 13 years. And one of them was with a very small brokerage. In fact, it was just one owner. And this guy, I mean, he was like Mr. Social Man. He'd walk into the room and everybody would light up because he was very outgoing, very personal, very engaging, high I, if you look at the DISC personality scale. And he told a story once, which has always set in my mind, about the importance of reminding people what you do. And he said, I woke up one morning, he said, I look at my neighbor's house and there is a for sale sign and it's not mine. And I said, I couldn't believe it. They know I do real estate. And I keep looking and think, why is that for sale sign out there and it's not my name on? How is that possible? So he wanders out there and he sees his neighbor. He says, hello, whatever his name is. He says, I see you looking at selling your house. Yeah, we're looking at selling. You do know I do real estate, you know. He has people go to his house all the time, agents, because he was the broker, picking up their checks and in and out, and he's got real estate signs out there. And the guy goes, oh yeah, I clear forgot. And he was gutted. He thought, how can he forget? There he is, my next door neighbor, and he's selling his house with someone else. He said, look, you've got to remind people what you do. So I've always thought about that. People do forget. And I have noticed in this line of business, which was a surprise to me, to be quite honest, coming from England, because it's a little bit different over there. And I'm not saying this in any unkind way, it's just an observation, but there is no loyalty in this business. Does that make sense? There is no loyalty. So what happens is people use you and they're excited and happy with the service you do. And the next time they buy or sell a house, for some reason, it's whatever lands on their doorstep and they use the next realtor. It could be, I don't know, it could be a friend or someone who moves into the neighborhood, or it could be a family member. So don't take that wrong, but there isn't like a loyalty platform where people, oh, I only use this person. Anybody got any thoughts on that, or anybody agree with that or not agree, or had the similar experience on loyalty in real estate? I think I saw Jessica nod, not Jessica, Shireen. Was it Shireen I saw nod? Would you like to comment on that, Shireen? Oh, you got to just unmute. There you go. Oh no, you're muted again.
Unmute. There we go. I have cousins even who I've done a house for, done a deal for, and I didn't do any family for the first 6 years I was in the business. I just thought, stay away from family for a while till you really get your feet on the ground. And then they go and sell their house and buy another house. And I'm going, now, wait a minute, they're my cousins. They know this is what I do. But even your family, you have to remind, I sell real estate. I help people buy and sell houses. So there you go. There's my experience.
Yeah. So you've got to just remind people. And I think we all fall in the category where we just think that people know what we do. And then we don't want to remind them because we don't want to bother them, or we don't want to in any way pressurize them or make them feel like every time we talk to them, we talk about real estate. And so we tend to, hold back a little bit. But just remember that we have to remind people what we do because they do forget. That's just kind of how it is. Anybody else got any thoughts or comments just on that platform or any of those areas in that first group? Anybody here done client parties, maybe with their brokerage or with another agent, or even just in their home?
This is Jess Walker. I work on a small team that was just women for the last year and a half, but we just have a new guy in the in the building. And yeah, we've done a couple. We're actually planning an Easter event right now. I think they're really good for socializing, clearly. I can't say that I got any direct leads. Well, not leads, but I mean, I didn't get any business out of the last one we did. We did a dinner and wine tasting and fashion kind of thing. It was for women because we were all chicks at that time. But I think they're definitely worth doing.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to remind people who you are and what you do. When we first joined this industry, we joined Keller Williams, and they used to have a number of these sort of client parties, or even just parties for anybody to attend. One of them was Death by Chocolate, they used to call it. And we would send out the invitations and people would come, but we wouldn't necessarily get a business from that activity, but it would remind people what we did. It would give us an opportunity to engage with people. And even if they didn't turn up and attend, they would at least be reminded that we are in real estate. And we did feel that we would in some cases would get some extra work just because we were reminding people what we did. So look at your brokers and see what they do. They may have some of these client parties going on. Sometimes they have, open days or open houses or whatever, maybe at their brokerage office. Get involved in that. It's something you can invite your contacts or your clients to participate in. Any other thoughts or comments on that group? Okay, let's go to this next little group here. I've got McCoy, he'll probably be able to respond a little bit on this. So anybody done door-to-door canvassing or work with door hangers or social functions with trying to find new contacts? Anybody done door-to-door?
I have twice. I don't think it's my forte or my favorite, but one of my team members swears by it. She's old school. She's been in the business for a long time and she still thinks that it's worth it.
Yeah.
Usually in neighborhoods like where we've had a listing or something like that, but it's not, like I said, I don't think I'm awesome at it.
Right. But you're giving it a go, and now it's one of the things you probably won't choose. If people don't know how to go at this, I would suggest you give it a go. And ideally do it with someone else, either another agent, or maybe you might team up with a lender, and do it in pairs. It's much easier to do that way. Anybody tried door hangers before?
I don't think they work. I think people just throw them away.
I've done door hangers. I found them to be reasonably successful if you're working you're farming an area, a neighborhood that you live in, and then you do door hangers, every so many months. What we did, we locked in with a lender, and they basically pay for the printing. They had their information on one side, we had our information on the other side, and then we would get them out. So they pay for the printing, we pay for delivery. And I have found that the door hangers certainly worked as another point of contact, just to remind people what you're doing, particularly if you're in the area and you know roughly their neighborhood. Social functions. Obviously, when we go to social functions, just make sure you've got your business cards on you. You don't know how those conversations will pan out. And, sometimes the conversation runs nicely. You say, hey, here's my card. Give me a call. If you decide to sell or buy or interest, or give it to someone else. Any other thoughts on the yellow group there?
Mark and I we started doing farming in a neighborhood, and we did the first one, we did a mailer postcard.
Okay.
And then we just now partnered with Crumble Cookies to do a discount. And we put that on one side of our postcard, and we are putting our information on the other side. And we're hiring some kids to go door to door and hang them on the door. So we're going to do like every other month, maybe a door hanger, and then maybe doing mailer or 2 to 1. I don't know. We're just trying to see. We'll let you know how it goes. Haven't done it yet.
Good idea, Connie. Yeah, I don't think you'll be disappointed. The key when you're working on this sort of particularly geographical farming, so you've got a general item you're sending out, whether it's a postcard or a direct mail or even a door hanger. It's not so much that one of these things works better than the other. It's more a case that all of these things work some of the time, and some of them work all of the time. I remember us getting, because we would work door hangers, then we do direct mail, then we do postcards, then we do door hangers. We've got something different coming in. The postcards we just slip into the door, you see, into the side of the door. But I remember we got someone called us up, and it was probably the best part of a year after that postcard had been put into the home, and they kept it. So they got your postcard. I thought, oh, we did a postcard recently. Let's have a look at it. I'm thinking, oh, we did that like 10 or 11 months ago. But they had kept the postcard. So, and they had seen, signs up, or they'd seen the door hangers, or they don't know. And it's just another prompt in the mind that helps them. So I think you'll be successful. It's consistency that makes the deal.
That's why we thought we'd partner like with a discount of like the crumble cookies, because they might put it on their fridge and it will be there for a while, because they intend to use that discount eventually. And then, so just staying in front of them.
Our current brokerage we're with up here in Cash, they do every probably couple of months, they lock into a supplier where they'll have a free item. So it may be buy one, get one free, or it might be go here and pick up a free ice cream. And it doesn't cost us anything because they've worked out a deal with that company, but all we've got to do is get the postcards out. So, we'll just send them out. And if people say, oh, got your postcard, I say something like, yeah, anything that's free, I think it's worth sending out. And they just are reminded that we are doing real estate. So I'll be interested to know how that goes, Connie and Mark, but it's a good idea to do it, because then at least what works and what doesn't work as well. But I believe that all these things work some of the time. They just don't all work all of the time. And so we have to find out what the best balance is for us.
Stephen, this is Jess Walker again. Connie and Mark, what are you saying on your media, your postcards or whatever? Are you just saying, hey, we're in the neighborhood, we know this neighborhood, use this as a resource? Or are you targeting listings or buyers, or just curious?
Well, our first one that we did as a mailer, we just took some informational stuff from a newsletter that our brokerage had sent out. So we kind of just said, what does the future
market snapshot?
Yeah, just kind of a market snapshot. It had a little graph, like what does the future hold for home prices? It talked about acceleration, deceleration, kind of people think the market's going to drop, and it was just kind of informational. And now this time we're not doing anything real estate of value real estate wise in terms of information. We're doing more of a treat for them, like, a discount from Crumble, which they'll take up one whole side of the postcard, but we'll still have our information on the back saying we're realtors. So we've only done it twice. The first one we did informational, and this one we're choosing to do something more fun, but still have our name out there. So
yeah, and often
thank you.
That's kind of like a soft approach, and people often like that because they consider something in it for them, and then they know who it's coming from, and they are reminded that you are in the real estate world. Very good. Let's look at this next group. We've already done that group actually, but this next group here, the blue group here. Okay, see if anybody's had any experience on any of these. So seminars, event booths, banks, third-party companies, community events, and networking events. Anybody had any experience trying any of those out, or any questions or thoughts on those? Let me see if I can engage someone I'm not engaged yet. Lauren, how would you like to unmute and say hi to everybody? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how are you, Lauren? Are you good?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. How long have you been a realtor for?
I've had my license a while, but I haven't really done many transactions, only about 2. So
perfect.
I'm trying to get back into the swing of it.
Perfect. Have you been involved in any of those in that blue area at all?
I actually have not.
Do you know any realtors?
Basically, sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to say, did you know any realtors that you work with that have been involved in those?
I've seen a few of my colleagues do like event booths, like at like farmers markets and stuff.
Right, yeah.
But that's about it.
Okay. So one of the benefits of running in some of these is you get sort of passing traffic. And obviously the passing traffic is the general public. And if you're in a high-end passing traffic area with a, you know, either it's a seminar or an event booth, then you can pick up some quick leads, but usually you're giving something out, you know, whether it's a promotional, I don't know, gift, pen, whatever it may be. And you may not necessarily be exchanging all of those contact details, but you can pick up some new leads. We definitely did one with banks. I don't know if you know, but the US bank usually has a little bank section in the store Smiths, and we had one local to us in Harriman. And so we would do a deal with the bank. They had a little section going on where they would highlight a business for a week, small businesses, and we'd be able to put in a little display. We'd have some leaflets there, some business cards, and then when we have a giveaway or something. And we found that we did get noticed. I can't necessarily say we got lots of information from, I mean lots of contacts from that, but I do believe the people we were connecting to in the neighborhood that were using the same store to go and get their groceries were also seeing us somewhere else. So that's one of the benefits of doing some of these more obscure generation sources, is because they start to see you in another place, which gives you a bit more credibility. Anybody else had any thoughts or experience in any of those in that blue section?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about having like another job or another resource to know people. What is a good way to kind of like combine those or share what you do? I don't know. I'm struggling. I have just an online, like an Instagram business with a lot of locals. And so I'd love to be able to kind of flip that and combine both of them, but I'm not sure how to do that. Does anyone, I don't know, thought I'd ask see if anyone had thoughts.
That's a great question. So your Instagram business, what is the service or the product you're selling through on that platform?
It's macarons, a baked good.
Okay.
Yeah.
They sound great. I think someone's trying to speak. Someone trying to speak on this? Just have to unmute. No? Okay. So certainly you could put like a little note there, giving information on real estate, because you are, you know, a realtor. As people are looking at that other topic there may be something new that pops up every day or every week or every whatever time, and it may just be information about real estate, you know, what the market is, the house market is, what's happening, what's not happening, because some of those people that look at that may think, oh, that's interesting, and there may be a click here option where they could then find your detail, and that would just be another little line you've got going through those contacts. I think McCoy's just unmuted. You got something to share, McCoy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like doing a giveaway, you know, a free thing that way, or I kind of had the same question. I have a few Airbnbs down here and was wondering, you know, if it's worth doing, hey, share my page. I'll give away a couple free nights, you know, at an Airbnb or something just to gain traction and to, you know, get things out there. So that's something I've kind of been contemplating. And I mean, I just don't know how to go about it, I guess. So.
Okay.
And McCoy, you probably don't want to be giving away too much, but you could give a discount, you know, so that you're still getting revenue from that other business if you were doing a, you know, a giveaway type thing. But certainly people are quite happy to see an advert or a little section on a web page that may be on a different topic. And often they don't equate the person to be with both of those areas. You know, they'll probably recognize, like you, Heather, for the one area that you're really promoting, but they wouldn't necessarily recognize you as part of the real estate, because their mindset when they've gone to that Instagram page is looking at your other product. When they click on it, and then you've got something that will say, you know, you talk about your real estate platform, they already like you because that's why they come into your page. And so most likely they're going to ask you a question, you know, and you could get contacts. I would suggest you definitely look at ways of marketing that traffic, because that traffic's coming in every day, every week and every month. And some of those people will buy and sell real estate. And some of them will not have a realtor. And you will be there ready to help.
Yeah, I've just got to figure out a way to combine them. So
you've got to work out that, you've got to just work out how to do that. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. You have to work out what works for you and what works for that platform that you are working with. Okay, let's move to this next group. I'm not sure if anybody's done any newsletters. Obviously, I hope you all got your business cards. Do you use your business cards? I have them with you all the time. Anybody here use newsletters as a way of connecting to people? Sometimes brokerages will have their own newsletter you can just add to and use. Often newsletters are quite good if they're in a general message, may not necessarily be anything to do with newsletter. I know the one we have at Presidio in our brokerage, it's never to do with real estate. It's always to do with what's going on, you know, I guess that month. Obviously, if it was the Halloween, they'd be talking about Halloween, and then maybe it might be about winterizing, or it may be about how to plant in the spring. It's always to do with something that people might be interested in. But of course, then it's got, you know, the Presidio logo and everything, so they know it's coming from Presidio. It's got all your details on. That's how our newsletters work, which are quite good. Anybody got any thoughts or comments on newsletters? Okay, here's another little group. We'll load these in and see if anybody's had any experience with any of these. So, advertising websites, magazines, radio, TV, and billboards. Anybody have any experience of using any of those sources to generate leads? Must be someone that's done some of those. I've done some of them. I know realtors who have done some of the others. But I always like to ask if anybody's got any thoughts first. Shireen, did you just unmute? Were you thinking of unmuting?
I haven't done any. Hold on.
Oh, you muted again, Shireen. You muted again. You're just muted. You're still muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
I haven't done any, but I drive past every day that I'm on my way home a great big huge truck that's got some guys, and I won't tell you his name because he's got a real estate company. He's got his name painted, he's got his name on the truck and his face, and it's a character of his face. It's not, you know, anyway, I drive past that every day and I go, okay, he's advertising every day because this is a main street and people drive it every day. Hundreds and thousands of people drive it every day. And so that's, you know, just an idea, but anyway.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because what you've done, you've highlighted that people subconsciously are receiving information all the time when they are passing things. And we know that when we're driving down the freeway, we see the huge billboards. But it doesn't need to be a huge billboard. It can be basically a billboard on the side of a truck. It can be a name. It can be colors, image, style, all means something to people. So just think about, there'll be some of these things that kind of think, oh, I might give that a go. I can't necessarily say it's going to work, but I can say that you'll learn from it and you'll see other ways of doing things. I know someone who did the radio for a while, and he didn't say he necessarily got any business from it, but he felt it helped other areas that he was working on, that people at least knew, you know, what he was doing. Some people have magazines they're connecting to. Some of these builders put out a magazine every quarter, and if they've not got a realtor attached to them, sometimes it's good if you're in that neighborhood of that builder to see if you could be in his magazine. And of course, some of us do have websites. I can't say that websites will necessarily bring you business, fresh business, but I think websites can give you credibility, particularly if you've got someone that you're working with and you say, hey, why don't you go to my website, and you can see some reviews or your recommendations from past clients that have worked with me, and that can be very helpful. So if you have got a website, I'd encourage you to get some reviews on there and recommendations. When we first got involved in this business, we did get a website together. We didn't have any clients. So we got one or two people that we knew who were in business, just to give us a character reference, you know, of honesty and, you know, ability to be ethical. And that helped us, because then if people go to the website, they could see that someone else that considered us to be good to work with. So you have to work with what you have and build upon that. That's the key in this game. Let's bring in this next little group to see whether or not anybody's had any experience here. So allied resources, apartments, corporations, or builders. Anybody had any experience or would like to have any experience in any of those areas in trying to generate some lead sources?
It's Jess Walker. I'm working with the Toll Brothers right now for one client, but I've trolled a little bit with the sales agent that we're working with up there, but nothing's really come to fruition. And I was thinking apartments. I don't know if I'm a masochist, but I have sort of a passion for buyers, especially the young first-time folks who are having a hell of a time in this market. So I was thinking that apartments, doing like door hangers, or I don't know, mailing to apartments, or people who are renting and getting into owning, would be a good place to, I don't want to use the word target, concentrate on. Maybe. I don't know what do people think about that?
Yeah, and I think just be careful on apartments. Make sure you've got you're not going against any laws. Some apartments have some strong
Like solicitation.
Yeah, they don't want you being there, but apartments is a great way, because these guys are renting and most likely want to get into a house, and so it's a really good place to get your name out there. I think Liberty, didn't you do some apartments recently? I'm sure Liberty, she's in our same brokerage. You would like to chime in on that, Liberty? Did you do some apartments recently?
Yeah, I just went around. So I live in a townhouse, so I went around all the townhomes and stuck a postcard in the door.
Yeah, and because you're in that neighborhood, you know, you're probably known by some of those people, and they've got your information. So great. I give it a go if I were you, Jess, to see what might come of it. You never know. But those people are definitely, some of those people are definitely going to be in the house market sooner or later.
Yeah.
I know of realtors that have tried corporations where they've gone into a company and said, hey, can we come in during the lunchtime, and can we, you know, teach a 15-minute slot, 10 or 15-minute slot just on this topic on real estate. And you know, sometimes they might have a gift there or some light refreshments or something, and that's, I think, has been successful to them. And of course, if you have got some builders, small builders that are in your area and they don't have an agent that they're attached to, that's another place you can go to try and, you know, get some more contacts. All right, let's pull up this last keyword. Unless anybody's got any other questions or thoughts on that slide. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle there. Some of them will work some of the time, and all of them will work some of the time. But they're not going to all work all the time. You just got to find out which is your best platform. Any other questions on that slide? Okay, as we wrap out the last few minutes on this, let's pull up that third keyword, and I'll just load up on the screen there. It's going to be corporations, so corporations. Corporations should be shouting out on your screen there. That'll be the third keyword. If you've missed the other two, talk to Leslie Ann. We can't share it again, and we can't share it in the text or chat. Corporations is your third keyword. So as we wrap this up, make sure you understand your packaging yourself. You've got to become a realtor that people want to hire, because that's when it's going to happen. Figure out how you're going to package yourself. You are unique. You are different to any other realtor in this business. Okay. There's like whatever it is, 17, 18,000 realtors in Utah. So, and I think is it like 3 million in the USA? It's something like that. So you're different to all of them, and that's what you're selling. You're selling you, and how you package yourself is how you make yourself attractive to others. Make sure you know what you're talking about, of course. Figure out what benefit you're going to be to the buyer or seller, your contact, because that's what they're going to buy. And remember that buyers are looking for benefits, and they'll hire you if they know that you're going to be a benefit to them. So figure out how you're going to package yourself. That's really important. Here are some other thoughts you might consider. Sell to your strengths. We all have different strengths. Hopefully we've got all of this somewhere in our character. But, you know, honesty is important. Adaptability, you know, can we adapt to people's needs? That's a skill. And of course, you know, are we good at communication? That's the way in which we build quick, fast, strong relationships. Persistency is important. Make sure we can be persistent without being pushy or rude. That's important. But we do need to follow up. If we do follow up, we will remind people what we do, and they, hopefully those that are ready will be able to ask us to get involved. You've got to be determined to succeed. Tenacity is an important quality. Patience also very important as we're working with developing contacts into clients. You know, can we take our own initiative? You know, we may not have any help at hand. You know, can we take care of things until we get that help available, whether it's from a broker or mentor or whatever? People like that. Here's some other thoughts you might consider. Try and be relaxed. Try and not be stressed or have an increased anxiety in this business. This girl looks pretty relaxed, and that's how we've got to look in this business. People have got to feel comfortable, they can talk to us, and that we can help them. None of us know everything in this business. That's why we go on these classes, so we can help us know a bit more. But none of us, even realtors have been doing this for 30 years, and I've met some of them. They don't know everything. But have the confidence to share what we do know, and we do our best to help our clients get through the hoops. And we always go to someone else to help us understand what we need to do. Be competitive, but be competitive against yourself. We're not measuring ourselves against someone else. We're trying to be better at doing this business against how we were doing it yesterday or last month or last year. Networking ability, it may not come naturally to us. And if not, we just work at it, we practice it, and hopefully then it will become natural. Be enthusiastic, be motivated. People like to work with people that are going somewhere, and be resilient. You know, if you do have a rough day or a rough chapter or a rough hour or a rough week or month or a bad year, then, you know, have the muscle to bounce back from that little dry spell and get going again. That's the key in this game. Anybody got any thoughts or comments on those two slides there? I just put a note at the bottom there. Sell yourself, you're unique. People hire you because you are you. That's what they're hiring you for. And they're choosing you against other people. The good thing about this business is there is little loyalty. So even those of you who just got involved in this business, you will pick up clients. I was really amazed that we picked up clients in our first year, and all of them had worked with other realtors. So, you know, maybe those realtors had not followed up properly, or maybe they had, but for whatever reason, they wanted to work with us. So that's how this game, that's the upside. You will always pick up new business from folk that have worked with other realtors. Being saying that, if there are people that will use the same realtor over and over again because that realtor's worked hard to keep them with their business. However, sometimes you'll lose business. I mean, we had one a couple of years ago, did a great deal with them, but then their sister got their license. So obviously, you know, they'll go to their sister, but maybe not always. Any comments on that slide? All right, then, well, let's close this up, this little class today. You've been a great team to have on board. This is what we covered today. We looked at those 4 degrees of action. Try and see if you can get into that massive degree of action at least some of the time, okay? And try and move out of number 1 position that's doing nothing. We looked at a few of those different strategies that we can tuck into. We looked at the sales statistics, some of those habits of salespeople. You've got to keep following up. You can't just do it once. You know, 80% of sales are made on contacts between 5 and 12 contacts. So that's pretty important. We reviewed a lot of those challenges that FSBOs see, and of course, can be useful with any contact we're working with. MLS expired listing, we review that for a short moment there. How buyers found their home, and of course, playing the numbers game. Keep playing the numbers game. Don't give up. The 6s will be rolled out if that's what you're after. Sooner or later, you're going to roll a 6. Internet, stop there. So let's just quickly load that one in. Oh, there it did come in eventually. I'm going to show that last slide there. So that's what we covered today. Hopefully, you can all, you know, move forward from wherever you are and try and reach out and get some new contacts in this next week or this next month. We started off talking about that choosing your track and the pace, and finish up by saying, you know, winning the race is actually finishing. It's not actually coming first, it's finishing. If we finish that race, wherever we are with the other realtors, then we will be successful. All right, Leslie Ann, she'll come in a minute, and just remind you on that little point at the bottom there.